Right, good morning, everyone. How come? That's all right. Morning, everyone. Welcome, councillors, staff, guests to the chamber. I do declare councillor meeting PMC 25-2 open. Just emphasising that today's meeting is live streamed. Everything you say is on Zoom and available for observation. I'll open the meeting with a karakia. Whakatau mai te waro, whakawatea mai te hene nauru, whakariti mai te tinana, kia ia ai namahi ai. Thank you all. We've got a full muster of Councillor Joyce online and Councillor Coxhead is on a leave of absence this week. So with that, we're all in attendance. No apologies. No late items. Is there any declarations of interest, councillors? No, appears to be none.
No conflict, sir.
Right, we move to public forum and we've had notification from and John to the front. If you'd like to come forward, gentlemen. Your correspondence you sent through has been loaded and all the councillors have had a chance to read that. Be well aware of the points you've pointed out, but now's your opportunity to emphasise anything you want from that good submission.
Oh, thank you for that. And yeah, forgive me, I've never done this type of thing before, so I have to wing it just a little bit. As you can see and gather, that there's a fair bit of frustration up our valley with the state of the road. My best estimate was about 43 properties up the road. We got responses from 36 on those forms and another 2 emails and a couple of texts that were neither were in the format that I could sort of share, if you know what I mean. Some of the stuff's been a bit heated, but basically out of the ones that we have shared, that affects 111 people from 36 properties. So we've got at least 95% support from the whole road. Saturday morning, I went up the road early to shift some cattle, come around the corner from my house, and there's a car lying on its side in the road. And a very excited, tiny little Asian guy bouncing around inside it. And if it wasn't so serious, it was kind of humorous. He looked like a rat trapped in a cage. It was on his side. He was that little, he couldn't get the driver's door open to get out. Anyhow, neighbour turned up. We got him out, flipped it on its wheels. I had to go home and get my tractor to drag it off the road. The guy couldn't speak a word of English, but what we worked out is he dropped over one of the edge brakes, obviously overcorrected. The road was wet, so he shot straight across the road, hit a bank, spun around sideways, and ended up on his side. Now, luckily he wasn't hurt, the car's totaled, but the real fortunate thing was that I think I counted 8 kiwifruit truck and trailers going up and down the road while we were there. If he'd been going across the road as a fully loaded truck come down, he'd be dead. Or one of the many families that are taking their kids to footy at that hour of the morning. So that's, people have hinted in here or written in here the number of close calls, but there was a real one, and it was just this Saturday morning. And solely, I don't know why he was over the edge brake, because he couldn't talk English, so we don't know if he moved over to miss a truck or something, or just simply ended up there. But that's what caused that accident. And luckily, the guy was fine. I'd say his car's gone, but and he disappeared after that too, never to be seen again. So anyhow, so that's real life. That's what happened Saturday morning. I don't think we need to go through the information I supplied over again. Hopefully you've all seen it. If there's any questions, I'm happy to note it. But what I would like to point out, and to use an example, so 263 Allport Road, virtually straight across the road from me, Gold Star Orchards is the owner, is doing this pumice quarry operation that, best I can tell, started in 2016. I believe the consent was for 80 truck movements a day and 6 days a week. Now, they don't always work 6 days a week, but I went and did some maths. When that used to be a dairy farm, with a milk tanker coming once a day for 8 months of the year, contractors coming, doing hay and all that. I came up with 500 traffic movements a year off that property. Since that consent started, and I was conservative on the numbers, and I went for 80 a day, 5 days a week, 40 weeks of the year, I came up with 16,000 truck movements, truck and trailer units. Then add in, it's been developed in kiwi fruit, then you add in all the associated kiwi fruit trucks and sprayers and stuff and that. Let's call it 20,000 movements a year versus what was 500 on a road that hasn't had anything done to it apart from putting some cold mix on potholes and things. So we recognise, and I've sort of worked out, seems to be almost monthly, some contractors turn up to put a bit of cold mix around holes. And there's a photo in the report there coming off our end of the bridge where it's just a massive series of potholes. You can't get around it. Well, that was done just on 3 weeks ago, and driving out this morning, no, it's gone again. That's about the extent of the lifespan of any of the patching. On the other photos, you can see we measured the road. It was 4.9 metres. It's actually narrower than that further up, but it was too dangerous to actually try and get a measurement on the road. As it was, we got chased off the road quite a few times while we're trying to do what we did do. The basics, I've done a lot of research on this. Didn't really want to get bogged down with too much detail, but there's a lot of information on the council's own website. And one of them refers to the average daily traffic and the minimum width of a road. So I've got a little graph here, and this was based off information in December 2022. It says that the minimum road width should be 7.5 metres. I doubt that there's anywhere on that road that's 7.5 metres. Has anyone got any questions for me or comments? You know, we're paying rates up there, obviously. Sorry, John's been there since 1955, so 70 years he's been paying rates. So I figured he's probably paid for a 4-lane highway all by himself. The quarry manager from Gold Star Orchards volunteered to me 2 weeks ago that he pays $200,000 a year as part of his consent to the council for roading improvements and maintenance. To be frank, apart from seeing potholes getting patched here and there, it's been going for 9 years. Where's that 1.8 million gone?
Right, before I go to questions, John, you've come all this way. Do you want to add anything to it? Here's your opportunity.
Sorry, what was that, Don?
Do you want to add anything?
I think Rod has probably done covered it pretty well. Yeah, I don't mind answering any questions. I'll just come as a support. Having lived up the road for a long time, this is the worst I've ever seen it. And that end of the road, we are fortunate. We are probably a kilometre, and we have an option we can go, and I have been using it. We go the Royden Downs Road, which is that's just our choice at the moment, because I don't feel safe going there. My wife doesn't feel safe driving out there because you've got these big potholes that you can fall off into. And if you meet a truck coming down that hill, and you've got to get off. So yeah, that's just what I'm coming for. I'm here to support. I'll answer any other questions. So,
Great.
Yeah.
Right, I've got Mayor James just going to kick us off.
Well, thank you for coming in, and I want to commend you for your very well written letter, which was clear and respectful and persuasive. The technical descriptions that you used suggest there might be a roading engineer background or some expertise there. Do you have that, or are you just really well researched?
I employed a qualified civil engineer to do the work for us.
Great. Okay. No, I think some of the deterioration that you depict is quite shocking, and I'd be quite keen to find out from staff what can be done to correct the situation. So that's me.
Mr. James.
And I would like respectively to suggest, challenge people to come out and come for a drive down that road. When we came out this morning, we met one of the Adline trucks, and the kids call it the tunnel, the treed narrow part. go into the washouts on the left-hand side of the road. Now, I drive a Dodge Ram and I bellied my pickup there a couple of weeks ago. It's getting to the point, you know, where if you're coming up the hill, the left-hand side, there's a photo there of some truck wheel marks up against the fence. That's now probably 3 times that depth with the wet weather. Down below that, that hill is going to disappear and we'll have no road. But I think really that people need to actually come and see it to sort of understand what we're talking about. Really, we're only about 4.5 meters wide going up through that piece there with big drop-offs to the side.
Right, one man who does know that area very well, Deputy Mayor John Scrum.
Yeah, thanks, Rod and John, for coming in. I was interested, you mentioned towards the end of your presentation, Rod, about a sum of money paid by this quarry, which you've highlighted. That's where the worst, from there to the main road, seems as where the worst damage is, as I understand it. I've heard from other sources too, and I assumed it was some sort of a rumour that the quarry people were paying money to council for the road maintenance. Do you have any more information about that, or is it something we need to find out from staff?
Yeah, well, as I say, it was the quarry manager rang me himself 2 weeks ago. I think he was just fishing really, and obviously heard what we'd been up to because we emailed us, letterbox dropped it, all that stuff. And so I told him what we were doing. And he said, yeah, no, look, I fully support it. You know, it's dangerous on the trucks and hard on the gear. And I said to him, well, but you're kind of the problem, you know. And that's when he said, well, I've been paying $200,000 a year to the council as part of my consent for road maintenance. So he told me himself. I didn't ask because I had no clue. So where that money's going, nobody knows. Surely hasn't been 1.8 million spent on coal mix on the road over the last 9 years.
Okay, I appreciate the explanation.
And the other point I wanted to raise too, so hopefully my little story with the traffic movements from the increase from that quarry across the road, we're aware that there's a consent in at the moment for another pumice quarry at number 2 Allport Road. I've read through that consent and I couldn't see anything with trucking movements at all about water catchment, hapu and iwi and all that sort of stuff. That's fine. But the last thing we need is more trucks on our road. And admittedly, this is up the very first part of the road, but there's 2 quite bad corners there, and that block was just logged this pretty recently. And several times you come around the corner and here's a logging truck cutting across the road to get into that thing, not coming around the 2 corners and then turning in, they'd cut across. And then as part of this, there was rumours that sound really pretty substantial that there's another property further up the road that's been bought with the purpose of mining pumice as well. And it's like, one quarry's destroyed our road as it is. We don't need 2 more. And it sort of leads me to the point I wanted to ask. When the one went across the road at 263, I didn't get to object as an affected neighbour because the outlet is 50 metres past my boundary, which is 30 metres past my house. The trucks are going in and out down there, so I'm not an affected neighbour. But I believe all 111 people that put their names to this are affected neighbours because it's our road.
Right, I've got a couple of last questions here. Councillor Henry, followed by Councillor Mobench.
Yeah, thank you for coming in. Am I hearing you correctly that you're saying that there's been very little road maintenance on that road since the quarry's been there? Is that what I'm hearing you saying?
Yeah, just patching of potholes.
And you are correct. Everyone on that road is affected from what we see in the pictures, and they're very detailed. The stop sign, everyone's got to go to that stop sign. There's heaps of potholes there and everything. So I would like to see a detailed explanation come back to council about how this road is and how the money has been used that was being collected. Yeah, well, that's what I would like to see, and that you get it reported back to you.
Yep. Councillor Mobench.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen, you live in a beautiful part of the country, and it's obviously a very highly productive area my question is, in the years that you've been here, Was the road just built for a rural road? And the production that's taken place since you've been there has been that the road is no longer fit for purpose? Is that a fair comment?
I'm probably qualified to answer that. The road certainly not built for that purpose, definitely not. The road was built originally for 8 dairy farms that were up in the area. Now there would be, I'm not sure, I haven't got the figures on my top of my head, but there's orchards, there's lifestyle blocks, but yes, quite a few kiwifruit orchards. There's only 1 dairy farm left on that road. So the truck movements, the traffic movements have, Rod's given some of those figures, but certainly not built at the quality of the road, certainly does not warrant that sort of,
And for the economic well-being of the country, your road meets a great need. Your area meets a great need, and the road just doesn't meet that standard, does it?
Not at the moment. No, definitely not.
Thank you.
And just further to my story about 263 going from 500 annual traffic movements to 20,000, another new development up the road, Southern Cross, who were very vocal in their email about supporting this. That was a dairy farm, cattle farm that's now 34 hectares of producing kiwi fruit. So again, kiwi fruit trucks running up the road with empty bins, coming back with full ones. You know, they made the point that their fear for their crew vans running up and down the road because of the state of the road. And again, it's kind of, you're part of the problem. You know, the road, as John said, was built for 8 dairy farms. There's now 40-something households up there. And yeah, it's getting very intensive with kiwi fruit. And, you know, the real scary part is this quarrying thing because it's just dangerous.
Thanks,
Thank
Rod.
you.
Right, I've got one last question, councillor Daly. Right.
Oh, sorry, I thought. Rod, you talked about that road should be 7.5 metres based on the council information. Is that based on purely traffic movements, not being a country lane or whatever?
Yeah, it's section 4, DS4 transportation document. Basically, it gives you daily movements of traffic. And you know, so it's a graph that comes down that says with 500 movements, it should be 7.5 metres. From 200 to 500 movements should be 6.5 metres. But this was all taken from your own information, and the only data I could find report on the amount of traffic was back in December 2022. That came from Mobile Roads, which gave us PCE, it's called, of 592. But this information was all sifting around in amongst your system. But the reality is, yeah, it's so far out. As I say, I doubt there's a bit of our road that's 7.5 metres anywhere.
Rightio. Thank you very much, Rod. John coming in. You've certainly highlighted the issue you've got there. And I've just talked to our acting group manager here, Peter, and some of those questions you've raised will garner a response to you in terms of that funding and road standards and that. Certainly an issue that has been highlighted with the growth of the district. We have had a focus on seal extension, but now we're starting to realise what's happening, that the roads that were sealed now are coming under more and more pressure, like you say, side brake and potholing and that. So something for the next council. Elections are coming up very certainly, but the next council will certainly have to turn their attention to the state of our roading network. So thanks for coming in.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Point of order. We can only ask questions. We can't make a recommendation. So the report that you've asked for will not only come back to these gentlemen, but will come back to this council.
Yes, it's we're getting good flow about all our entire roading network. So yes, it will, but it will highlight this one. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Councillors. Thanks, guys. I turn your attention to page 6 of the agenda. And that's the matter of the Precious Family public toilet location options. And I'm going to kick it off. I'm going to ask for the reception and the significance recommendations to be moved initially, and then I'll take questions after that. So I need a mover and a seconder to receive the report and its level of significance. Could I have that, please? Councillor Sol, Deputy Mayor Scrimmager. I'll put that. All those in favour? Those against? Okay, carried. Thank you. Right. Recommendation 3. Here's your chance. This has been hashed around at previous workshops and with the Kaimai Reserve Plan Management, but are there any questions that aren't answered in that pretty detailed report we've got? I'll take any questions first before we move to 3. Councillor Wickers.
Yeah, I'd be interested in the community board's view. There's that email that they've supplied there, which reads as if they're responding back to the community. If that makes sense, it would be interesting. And they don't specifically express a view on what they think. Do we have anything that could help us understand that?
Murray, do you have any comment to make on that in terms of the community board? Or they?
I think that email was written by Chris, but I don't know whom to whom.
Right, any further questions? Councillor Sol.
Yes, sir. I guess I just would like to know a little more about the gentleman that was very upset about his memorial seat, etc., and its positioning and so on. I just would like to know whether that was their preferred site for it, number one, or was there another, or is there a better site? Is there some way of mitigating the issue regarding that seat?
Mr. Chairman, so the person had met with a team leader of reserves and facilities who are no longer employed by council. It had left a few years ago. My understanding that there was another site that looked at, but that was going to have some planting or some other reasons why that couldn't be used. And then there was discussion about selecting that site there. So the seat is approximately about 17 metres away from where the proposed toilet site is. And as you know, the toilet site is determined by its proximity to the underground services, where it has to have offsets and stuff from all the underground services. That's one of the reasons why it's determined where its location is.
Can I ask then, so the original site that you say there was going to be some planting, what is the situation with that site now? Did that proceed? Is that proceeding or whatever? Or is that site potentially still available?
I'd need to go back and recheck all that on site and check our records here.
Councillor Henry, a question?
This has been going on for a while, hasn't it, Peter? The people that we had, a few of the people that came in had mentioned that they thought the toilet was more suitable to be closer to the beach side. Now, you did talk to us, I think, in the first triennium about that toilet, and that one of the reasons you gave was the pipe, the cost of actually moving it elsewhere. And I know I haven't had a close look at that, but you've given 3 locations, but one of them isn't at the beach, on the beach edge. Am I reading that correctly? That is not an option that you've included in the report.
So the option in the report, which I think is talking about when we met with the group and previous correspondence with the community, they talked about could it be put around the corner? And that's the reason why the chairman of the community board responded, because that was put to us about could it go around the corner, but there's a raft of reasons. You're saying like, yes, it could, but there was a cost to that, etc.
Yeah.
And the things being it's more than just a physical infrastructure cost. It means we have to go and get a whole new resource consent, do all our assessments again. There's all those statutory costs, not just the physical extending pipes and water and stuff. And there's the risk that having around the other site with a slightly different finished floor level because of the flooding there, it means that the disability access may not be achievable as well, or could be with an extremely long ramp going in to achieve the 1 in 12 slope.
Mm.
So that's why that wasn't looked at.
So a resource consent is needed to take it from any of those options that you've got now to to closer to the shore.
Correct.
Okay.
Because it's in a floodable area. That's the reasoning for it.
Mm. And any of those sites there are within budget, that the three that you've got there, they're not.
No,
gonna-
no. One,
What-
option
one-
two, which is to relocate it from where its
Yeah,
consented
I just
position
said
is,
to him, I
would
didn't read it
be
carefully enough.
at least an extra $50,000
Okay,
to
thank you.
achieve that.
Right, councillor Mo Bench.
I'm ready to move Sir 3C. And I think one of the things that really councillors are not aware of, there was a meeting held down at Precious Reserve and people were angry. They didn't want the proposed site that had originally, we were going to put the toilet.
Wait a minute, we just, oh, sorry, you do have indicated you're looking to move. Can I just park you for a second and finalise questions? I've got one from, and then I'll let you back on. Okay, sorry to cut you off midstream, but I haven't got a seconder yet, so you can speak after that. Councillor Vickers, one last question.
Yeah, it was just going back to the question I actually asked. So I was just making the point that the chair of the community board's email was unclear about the position of the community board, whether what their thoughts were in regard to the thing. So that's
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, the community board is in support of, community board, I think, is generally in support of the toilet being put there at option A.
Right, councillor Mo Bench, you have a recommendation for 3?
See, sir, and my grounds are that after the really angry meeting down at Precious Reserve and tempers were really flying, the community said, we will petition, and they got 360 something signatures. And of those, and they didn't define what people should say, but 234 people did not want the toilet anywhere. And I'm putting 3C because if the second option is, originally, sir, it was meant to go where the wastewater system is out at Amokoroa, and that would have been fine. But since then, there's been a whole lot of development, and with people coming to live here, they like what they've got.
Okay, I'll let you save your argument for a second if I get a seconder then. Do I have a seconder for option 3C? I do, and Laura Ray. Right, speakers.
So, sir, in speaking to it, I firmly believe that the one thing that we councillors have to do is listen to the community. If we can't be bothered listening to what they're saying, we shouldn't be here. And we put our staff in a difficult position often, but that's what our role is, to actually reflect what the people are asking for. And of one person wanted the toilet planned in the location, 70 wanted the toilet in a different location on the reserve closer to the beach, 70 people wanted the toilet at a different location in Amokoroa, and 230 people, 34 people did not want the toilet anywhere. And one person said they could provide a free quote for toilets in a changing room. So there's a conversation going on in Amokoroa. They've put up with dog fences which they didn't want, and now they've got a toilet that they don't need and don't want. And so, sir, 3C is the one that will reflect the community, great majority of the community's wishes. And sir, I'm happy to move it.
Thank you. Further speakers, councillor Granger.
I too listen to the community in Amokoroa and I hear a totally different viewpoint. So I do not accept that from councillor Murray Bench. And also the petition was incredibly flawed. There was a whole lot of misinformation and disinformation in that petition, and it should not be taken any notice of whatsoever. The people at that meeting were told quite clearly to get the petition done by independent people. It wasn't. It was a very skewed petition, and it should carry absolutely zero weight in this chamber. So I will not be supporting option C.
Councillor Henry.
So on the motion that we've got on the table, is that option 3 we're talking about? Pardon?
3C.
Oh, 3C. I
Yes.
can't see it on my, is it close to 3?
No, it's not.
That's on page 6.
Oh, okay. No toilet in 3, but where is 3C?
The toilet facility
I want to,
Put in a
be used
oh, not put in.
at a different site elsewhere in the district. Was that your view? Was that your speech or? 6 were on of the agenda. Councillor Daly.
Can I ask another question? That was sort of a question. Peter, can I ask you, the staff position is still recommending 3A. Is that correct? Or you've got no position? Based on the fact that 3B, you need to spend more money, you need to redo the resource consent. There's difficulty with wheelchair access. Is that what I heard?
That's correct. What staff don't have a direct preferred position, but we've provided you with the options that are available for this in response to the community and the petition, etc., and a lot of other influences into the process. What I'd be saying is that if option 3A was to be chosen, and we could just get on and complete that job, it's all consented and ready to go, shovel ready, so to speak. But we're just seeking some clarity and direction from the committee, because we've spent an extraordinary amount of time on this particular project as head elected members.
Can I also ask,
Probably not. I mean,
do you agree with Murray's position on the petition?
well, no, that's not fair to our staff. Eh? You're a councillor, you're paid the big money. Come on, councillor, let's go. It's your view. Have you got one? Or?
Well, 3C, I know where it's likely to go if it doesn't get used here. So,
Any other further speakers, Councillor Wickers?
Yeah, so not living in that part of the district and not too familiar with it, I'm not going to say too much other than I wouldn't go for option 2 because of the funding. But if the community board said they'd put the 50K in and they wanted it in that position, I'd go that one. So if there's general support for one, I would go for 1. But if there's not, I would go for, A, I'd go for C. So I'm just waiting to hear what the general feel is in regard to A or C.
Mayor James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is about choosing the right location for a toilet that's previously been agreed. And I can guarantee you're going to spend or have spent more time on this, a very small matter, than we will spend when we have to award the contract for a wastewater treatment plant costing tens of millions of dollars in the next few weeks. The location directly impacts only a very small number of people, about 5 houses alongside the reserve, which are between 85 and 120 metres from the proposed toilet location. The visual impact of a small dark green toilet on low-lying ground and blending into a background of trees is in my view negligible. I've had a couple of visits over to that reserve over the last few weeks just to check that out for myself. And I know even in the rural zone, the setback for dwelling is 30 metres from a property boundary, and we're talking a distance 3 or 4 times that for a very tiny building in an urban area. I will also acknowledge the issue of the memorial seat, and it was very moving to hear that the Moller family come in there. But when the petition was presented, we were showing pictures of the toilet being some 3 to 4 metres away from the memorial seat, and that is understandably confronting and invasive for those for whom this seat is deeply meaningful. However, the toilets, as we've heard from Peter, are actually going to be 17 metres away, which doesn't seem unreasonable to me, but nevertheless, I'd personally be supportive of offering to move the seat if that were the wishes of the Moller family. I want to assume that's not too big a deal. Beyond those handful of people who are impacted in a very minor way, it appears the matter has been elevated into a controversy, as allegedly by Councillor Granger, with a petition that contained a number of spurious assertions and some of which were simply untrue, and driven by a desire for council not to spend money, even on what I would call core infrastructure like a public toilet. And in that regard, the decision was made years ago. The funding is already allocated. The overall amount is rather small, and the sunk costs make altering the location wasteful of ratepayer money. So, cancelling this now will save the ratepayer little if meant any money, frankly. So, I don't accept the argument based on financials. Conscious of the impact for those next to the reserve, but I do think that 85 to 120 metres away, this is really quite a small impact on their view and enjoyment of the reserve. Thank you.
Right, I've got Councillor Sol followed by Councillor Joyce. Ellen.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I've found myself conflicted with this one time and time again, and even today I've been going through that. Basically, my first thoughts are always, get it right the first time. But unfortunately, probably the right place is something that we're not allowed to do. So that's the first thing that's wiped out, and I find that quite disturbing in some ways, that we can't get a resource consent to be closer to the water in a far more useful, practical place. So that's one issue that I have, sir. Then I basically look at the fact that we consulted on this back in 2017, 2018, which is again an issue in today's world. Whilst I believe we've got to plan and look forward. Plans are really important to try to make things happen and get a picture of what your community or what's going to happen. But it's something that, sir, I've seen it before, when all of a sudden something comes up and starts happening, and there's a council resolution way back years ago, and we're now activating it. Those are things I think council itself's got to start addressing a lot more and realising the world changes, because it changes so darn fast today, and communication and development of things changes immensely. So I guess really the part that I feel otherwise is for the family with the seat. That's why I asked the question for clarification. And I too would follow along the mayor's line, that if there was possibility of giving the people an opportunity to move that seat to what they feel may be a better site even, or to what they perhaps liked in the first place, that would help mitigate their issue, which I believe is a very sincere issue with them. And so I would certainly go along with that side of it, sir. Otherwise, the issue is in the end, we need a toilet down there, I believe, one way or another. When you need it, you need it. And that's the problem I guess we face.
Thank you. Councillor Joyce. Turn your microphone on for us.
Yes, I'm just working on that, but with you now. So this is an issue that bemuses me, because we've just had the huge dog park fight in Amakara, and we managed to pit one part of the community against another, and here we are again, and we don't seem to be using the community board again to help us through that. I mean, that's what community boards should be doing. They're supposed to have an overview of what council's doing in their area, and yet we seem to bring it to this table, and you can see looking around the table, and I'm no different. We don't have an in-depth knowledge, most of us, of what's happening in Amakara and what the view is. And I take Councillor Sol's point. I mean, that Amakara has been transformed in the last 7 or 8 years, absolutely transformed. So the needs and wants may be different. We are where we are, and I realise it's probably too late now to refer it back to the community board. I think the only compromise I can see is what the mayor suggested, which is go ahead where it is, because it needs to be near the infrastructure, and then look to meet the needs of the family with the memorial seat. Because you can't put it anywhere else, because it's just a waste of ratepayers' money to dig up a park for pipes far from the pumping station. So I don't have absolutely firm views. I'm just disappointed that once again we've managed to turn an Amakara issue into something of an issue, dividing people. And I think we need to look at how we handle this. I think Councillor Sol made some very important points about resolutions that have been sitting on the books for a long time. And then going, well, we've already made this decision years ago. Anybody was consulted? Yeah, well, that was a long time ago. And I come back to my ongoing theme. We need to make more use of community boards to help us through these local issues.
Thank you, Councillor Joyce. Any further speakers? If not, I'll take my opportunity before I give Councillor Murray a right of reply. Regarding the community board, they certainly do not violently disagree with this. In fact, at workshops have talked about the long-term goal of toilets being at every reserve over the whole peninsula, really is an aspirational goal that was mentioned at a workshop, but we're dealing with this one today. Myself as a visitor to the Omokoroa area for recreation, I certainly enjoy the Cooney Reserve facilities now when I'm using the walkway on the northern side, eastern side of the peninsula. We certainly do use the western side and enjoy that beach and just sit in those chairs under those covers by the beach. Such a relaxing spot. There is that walkway now along the golf course, which is used very frequently, and this toilet being reasonably close to that for those walkers again is a good. So I believe by not supporting it today, we're just kicking the can down the road. We've talked about the 10 going to 12, going to 13,000 people living on that peninsula. I think it's absolutely essential long-term that a toilet is in that area, and I believe we've identified it, so I won't be supporting option 3C. So with that, I'll pass it to Councillor Murray. Yeah.
In my right of reply, I said before, it's important to listen to the community. The community board is one thing, but this has elevated above the community board, and the community as a whole is deeply involved in this issue. There is an $80,000 that could actually be saved by not doing it at all. And I'd stress the fact that we've got a commercial centre close by that doesn't have a public toilet in it. And if I was planning for toilets in Omokoroa, that's the one place I would put a toilet, because if you're having coffee and you're actually relaxing, you've got to go somewhere sometimes. And so when I say 3C, it means that you've got an option to put it where it is needed more. And at the moment, it is not needed on Precious Reserve. The majority of people are saying it. As time goes by, we've watched as that Precious Reserve, the drainage has been improved. It used to be quite wet down there, and I think our staff have done a magnificent job in upgrading it. They didn't want the dog fenced area. They like the freedom to be able to walk. They don't want cars wandering down there as well. And it's a place where people can be free to walk and relax. And so if it's not 3C, then it has to be 3B, and with the extra money being spent. But 3A is no longer an option, sir. And so I was here in 2017 where we actually had the toilet placed with where the wastewater system was, and that was ideal. Now we find we can't do that. So looking and being sidelined by the memorial seat, that is one thing, and it is important. But shifting that seat just means that's not an option, and nor is the toilet. It has to be someplace else because people don't want it in that site. So you either go to 3B or 3C, and I'm saying 3C, sir.
Thank you. Right, councillors, you're aware of the recommendation 3C. It's in front of you, page 6. The toilet facility be used in a different site elsewhere in the district. It's moved by Councillor Murray Benj, seconded by Councillor Ray. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? No. I declare it lost. Any other one else want their vote recorded at vote against? Just Councillor Murray Benj against. Right, councillors, that failed, so I'm in your hands. Councillor Granger.
We have to make a decision. 3C is off the table. There has been significant discussion around the table this morning that 3B is not a starter. That leaves us with 3A. I'm happy to move 3A, sir.
Thank you. I'm happy to second that discussion. 3A is proceed with the installation of the toilet facility as shown on attachment 1. Councillor Granger, would you be happy for some additional words to be added about the discussion with the family and the possible relocation of the seat as part of that?
If that is required.
You can do anything. It's Councillor Granger's resolution.
If the removal, if moving the seat is required, yes, I'm happy to support
Okay.
this.
And I'm happy that that's added. So we'll have words to that extent. Oh, there you go. We've got words here from Rosa, noting that staff will engage with the family on relocating or not of the memorial seat. Thank you. Any speakers for 3A? Appears not. Oh, Councillor Murray Bench.
Sir, we have just made it an election issue. This one isn't going to go away. And I think the community will be really angry at the negligence that they see that this council doesn't care about what people actually think, who live in the area and who actually spend every 24 hours of the day there. And I just think we are setting ourselves up for failure.
Thank you. Councillor Daly, did you wish to speak?
Yeah, we heard the family representative come in here last time, and obviously it's important to them, that seat. I think they gifted the original land, didn't they, that family? No, they didn't gift the land?
No, nobody gifted.
No one gifted anything.
Okay.
And it's, yeah, anyway.
Okay, so I know that whenever memorial seats come up around walkways or anywhere, people like to, it's something that people like to engage in because, you know, their family member had a special connection to the land. They did a lot of community work on the land, but I know from discussions in the past with our reserves manager that council generally opposes this for exactly this reason. Down the track, these can become problematic as council and the land evolves. And the fact that a toilet needs to go into here somewhere, this is the logical place right next to the pumping station. We've heard that the cost and difficulty to relocate it away from this seat is probably not going to pass the test today. So I do applaud the added recommendation that the family be worked with to find a new location for this seat, because this does seem to be the logical place to put this toilet, and obviously we need to acknowledge the family concern, the neighbours' concerns, but as has been stated, it is quite a considerable distance away, and like Don, I do agree that public reserves anywhere, and especially in a growing community, a public convenience or toilet does become a necessity in time. So with that, I'm going to support this option.
Councillor Green, do you want final words?
Thank you.
I believe so, yes.
Yes, well, a number of points have been brought up, and as Councillor Sol has alluded, I mean, the logical place for this toilet is down at the beach, but regional council will not allow us to put it down there because of things that I think may happen in the future. And we are constrained by their rules in this particular instance. So the next logical place is up by the pipes and power that already exist in that location. Councillor Murray Benj has talked about putting it in the shopping centre. Putting a toilet in the shopping centre would cost this council a fortune. We'd have to buy the land, we'd have to build a building, and that would just be a ridiculous impost on the ratepayers for us to buy land in the shopping centre to put a public toilet. At the meeting that was held at the reserve, I stated quite clearly that my position on this toilet was to support it and that I would continue to do so, and I'm staying true to my word, and I will vote obviously in favour of option 3A.
Thank you, Councillor Granger. Right, councillors, I'll put option 3A with that additional wording. Hope you're all aware of it, that staff will be sensitive to the needs and requirements. It doesn't guarantee relocating, just that consultation goes on and the wishes of the family respected. So 3A, I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? No. Yes. Would you like yours recorded, Councillor Ray? Councillor Henry? So it's 3 against. I declare 3A carried. Thank you, councillors. Right. Before morning tea, we will we'll go to Athenry and Ahi Patiki draft concept plan. Peter, are you? Oh, here he is. Not Peter, sorry, Scott's up there. Another long-awaited project. And your speaker on so Councillor Joyce can hear the dialogue. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, look, I don't need to speak for too long, I don't think, on this particular topic, but just to say that this has been going on in the community for a number of years now, and we started the formal process of investigations really back in 2021, and here we are today. So we've identified a preferred route back in 2021. We've then developed a concept plan in close partnership with Tangata Whenua and in the board, community board, and also the local school at Waihi Beach. So from the process that we undertook in April, we had 3 separate face-to-face opportunities for the public to come along and have a chat and record that. One in Katikati, one in Dr. North Reserve in Athenry, and the other one at the farmers market on a Saturday morning, where Councillor Sol came along and gave us a hand with that. They're all very positive feedback sessions, and it's indicated in the level of support that we got through the feedback, where we've got 277 separate items of feedback there, and the kind of analysis of it all is that it's approximately 70% fully support it, and 30% that are have suggestions to improve it or really don't like it at all. So that's where we're at, and really all we want to do at this point is obtain a decision on proceeding through the resource consent process, really, and that's where we're at now. Thanks.
Thanks, Scott. Before I go to Councillor Joyce for a question, we've just noticed the last item about approving something and then building it 7 years later. So I'm just mindful that I hope we don't set ourselves on that path. And I was just conscious that he talked about the 30% either want improvements or violently against it. Is there people who are violently against this for? Sorry, not wrong word, sorry, vehemently against us.
Yes, I think there is a very small number that would be described as vehemently against it. But what's interesting when you look at their feedback, it's very much a heavy focus on concerns around environmental impact, and 1 or 2 concerns around the sheer likely cost of the project. And that's really the only 2 things. But, there's through the resource consent process and in the preparation for the resource consent process involves a huge amount of environmental investigations with ecologists and engineering investigations on the route itself. We've been very thorough, and unfortunately we weren't in a position to share at the stage of the April consultation. We weren't in a position to share all of that work, and those reports have been done. That will be available when, if we proceed through the resource consent process, because the intention is that will be a fully notified resource consent application, and all of that documentation will be available for everyone to scrutinise. So I think that by the time we get to that point, and those same individuals who may be opposed to it, once they see the amount of work and effort that we've gone into, they might perhaps change their minds a little bit.
Thanks, Scott. Councillor Joyce, Rodney.
So thanks, Scott, and I take what you say about the environmental issues will be addressed fully in the resource consent. The other main concern that people had, and I won't overplay this because most people were in support, is the cost. You don't plan a project like this without an indicative cost. So can you speak to that and where council staff think that would be funded from?
Yeah, sure. Look, all the way through, we really have been unable to talk about cost. What I can talk to though is to the 2021 feasibility report that was undertaken, and through that there were 4 route options that were looked at, and there were cost estimates provided for those route options. The preferred route option, which is the one that we've got the concept plan for now, had back then in 2021 a price range estimate from $1.9 million to $3.3 million. The 3.3 represented a rock causeway structure across the whole estuary. The $1.9 million estimate was based on a timber boardwalk across the estuary. So that's really all I can do. We're unable to really understand the true cost that this, based on the concept plan at this stage, because that needs detailed design work undertaken to really know what the indicative cost is. But, you know, it's fair to say it will certainly be likely quite a bit more than the $1.9 million for a timber boardwalk. Beyond that, really can't say at this stage.
The second part of the question is, where do you see that money come from? Because we've talked a lot about external sources of funding.
Yeah, so that's why in the report we've got an item there that requests that we undertake a funding strategy process for this, and actually we're just starting that thinking now. The funding will largely have to be externally found. That's reality, but also reality is that council will need to be seen to be having skin in the game for this project, because that's how we will assist us to lever external funding. And we know that if we do a good job of this and we have some skin in the game, and I couldn't be unfair to say what level of funding that is needed, but it needs some from council, but I think the majority of it can be found externally.
Cool. Thanks for your answers.
Thanks for those points, Rodney. Right, Anne, you're up, and Councillor Henry.
Yeah, well done, Scott. It's been a long journey, and you have been true to what you said to us, that you would take it through and get as much support as you can for it before you put it into regional council. And I think 92% of the submitters that submitted were as a proof of the work that you have done to get this over the line. But the rhetoric is very important around this, and my question is around the costs up to date and the resource consent, not necessarily the build. So I guess that the costs that you've had up to date with all the assessments and that have been handled internally, and is the resource consent going to be handled, or is that another cost to council that we're going to find out soon?
My belief at this stage is that the cost for proceeding with the resource consent process can be fully managed with an existing budget that we have.
So proceeding, so you don't know what you're going to get out, the outcome of that, so that may not be covered when we find out what we need to do more in terms of the.
So the resource consent process, if like any resource consent process, if we're successful with it, that will come with consent conditions, and that will then dictate those factors have to be built into the detailed design process. Yeah.
So just up to the point of putting it in is where you've covered the unknown that we don't know about yet.
Yeah, well, the resolution is aimed to reach the conclusion of the resource consent process, so to actually obtain a decision from the consenting authorities as to whether they'll approve it or not approve it.
Mm.
And so that's
you see what I'm saying in terms of the public. If it comes to the fact that and they don't understand necessarily all the ins and outs of the resource consent, we come up with another a million, say, or 500,000 or whatever, to get that over the line, that would need to have a bit of cushioning around it, because we have said all the way along that it was going to be externally funded. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I think there's another piece of work to come, right, which is that funding strategy piece of work, which we would want to workshop with, you know, through a workshopping process on
Okay,
that
that's good.
to reach an end point.
Yeah,
Excellent.
thank you.
Councillor Sol, I'm sort of letting a blending of questioning and discussion on this, given that it's a future project, but the implications might as well deal with them all now, and then will probably be likely less discussion when we actually get round to moving that 1 to 6. So, Alan.
Yes, thank you, sir. Basically, it is a project that's been around a long time, etc., and the public have been waiting and waiting and waiting for it. I believe the council has taken a very good, responsible approach. So I would like to move recommendations 1 through 6.
Okay, I'll let that go through, because Councillor Murray Benj, you can speak to it. And if you have any questions, I'll certainly allow them to come out in this, but you can certainly speak to it now. So it's moved Sol 1 to 6 and second Henry, and now you can speak.
I think this is one of the most exciting projects we've had before council. And when I was elected, you swear to take a district-wide approach to everything we do. And I'm in Kaimai, but this is in Katikati, Waihi Beach, and I think it's superb. And my only question was, would you consider giving TECT naming rights for it, and to make sure that you get the maximum amount out of the TECT organisation, which you obviously could do. So the resource management hearing will be challenging, but that will clarify a number of the issues that you've got before you. But linking the various sections of Bowen Town, Athenry, etc., is really, this is a super way of doing it. And I thank you for the work that you've put in to date. And there's obviously a lot of work ahead of you. But at the same time, I think this is a very fine project. I got to Katikati, sir, to the forum, and a guy bailed me up, and he didn't take me to the Three Waters. He took me straight to this project and said, I have never been interested in local government, but this one I think is magic, and I want to see it happen. So I'll be talking to him again.
Right. Councillor Joyce, followed by His Worship the Mayor.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those projects that has been a long time coming. It does generate a lot of debate, you know, but like the Eiffel Tower approach, you know, once it's there, everybody will claim credit for it, because it is an exciting project, and it will be an important and it fills in a difficult gap in the long dreamed about sort of Waihi to Tauranga cycleway as well. You know, this is one of the hardest parts to do, and the fact that we're trying to do it now is a good thing. The external funding will be very important. You know, a couple of $1 million, $2 or $3 million out of ratepayers would be excessive for this. But if we can deliver it with good value for money, and I know, as you heard from staff, you know, they're very, very focused on that, which is great. And I also acknowledge that finding the route has been difficult. There's some very strong views out there about what route it should take and what route it shouldn't take, but that will be teased out again in the resource consent process, no doubt. And, you know, that's a good place for this idea to be tested, and its environmental credentials to be tested. So I certainly support it going to resource consent.
Thanks, Councillor Joyce. Mayor James.
Thank you. I'm supportive of this, as it seems the vast majority of the feedback is supportive, and also acknowledge that the consent process should iron out certain concerns around trees and construction materials. I would also ask that it be noted in the minutes and also for the resource consent, Scott, that this project aligns with and is included in the Regional Land Transport Plan. That's an important point to note. As well as in the community plan and the walking and cycling action plan and the recreational open space policy. So it does align and tick all those boxes. Regarding funding, I would just tentatively suggest that maybe this could be a candidate for the Community Facilities Fund, which does offer a reasonably chunky amount of money that for projects that I think this would tick the box for. So that is an idea for the future, as well as the walking and cycling infrastructure fund. I think to Councillor Sol's point about potentially approving projects and having it sit on the books for years, I think the ongoing nature of this and the funding for it means that it's not going to be like a forgotten toilet that comes back years later. It'll be high in the minds of community, and it's not like someone will come back and, if it takes us 5 years to do it, so be it, but it's not like it would have been forgotten about in the meantime. So I'm comfortable about that, but I know your point. So yeah, I'm in favour, and wish you all the best with the consent application. Thank you.
Thanks all. Any further speakers? There being none, Councillor.
I did have a question as well, but only a quick one. But in the 2021 consultation, the two options, rock revetment versus boardwalk, was there a preference indicated for either of those two, Scott?
No, so we didn't really ask when we went out for the consultation. We didn't really ask on the forms of construction method. They were just considered at the time in terms of the options, and like how could you build this crossing? So when the consultants were involved, I just directed them and said, well, come up with some different ideas on what that could look like. And so hence we ended up with the rock causeway, the timber boardwalk, and I think there was a pontoon idea in there as well. Each of those have their pros and cons. The rock causeway idea, although pretty grand and pretty permanent, has a massive impact on the environment. And I think for that, I think we'd all agree that that would be very difficult to proceed with for those reasons. But hence we've sort of come back to thinking that we've got to look after that environment the best way we can, and some kind of elevated structure seems to be the right way to go for this project.
And if I can speak to the motion, yes, obviously with my community interests in Te Puke, I'm supportive of any project like this. The artists' illustrations are certainly impressive, and I think demonstrate the recreational benefit over time when you do establish things like this. And I know there has been through our long-term plan process quite a lot of opposition to funding of cycleways, and this classifies as a cycleway shared pathway. So yes, there are wider community benefits than just trying to save some money here and there, but I do point out that a Te Puke to Rangiru Business Park cycleway has been proposed for some time. A business case has even been prepared for it, but there's never been wider community consultation like we see with this project. So I would like to see certainly consultation of this nature put forward for the Te Puke to Rangiru Business Park proposed shared pathway, and in terms of what comes up the lift and when it comes up the lift, I would certainly not still like to be here in 10 years' time asking why you haven't built Te Puke to Rangiru Business Park shared pathway, especially if this gets built before that.
Thanks, mate. Councillor Henry, before I go to Councillor Sol.
Another very, very exciting and superb project for the Kalikali Waihi Beach Ward, and another jewel in the crown. And I think it's very appropriate that you're heading this up, Scott, because you grew up in that area and you went to school there, and now you have a strong affinity with the area, and it was really good that you were able to be there to pick up that. And I really appreciate the detail that you've gone to. The design is amazing. You have worked so well with the tangata whenua. They just think you're amazing, and the way you think. Perhaps a couple of little people on the foreshore might be a bit concerned, but I think they'll get over it in the end. And I thank you for the care and attention that you've put towards that, and I wish you every success with the resource consent.
Thank you.
Right. Councillor Sol, you want closing remarks?
Thank you, sir. So it was about 2014 when I first got involved in this particular connection. And in those days, it was going to go across from Emerson Road. So it has morphed into a far better thing now. And I'm just so pleased to see us at least looking at it, and it's never, ever, in all that time, ever dropped off the radar of the public. As the Mayor alluded, this is one that is always in front of people at Waihi Beach in general, okay? So I don't see this quite having the same effect that maybe we dealt with earlier today. But it's always been so strongly supported. And, you know I spent time back in those early days walking that bit of raised soil that we've got from the drains and so on, looking at how we would connect across. So it's got a lot of history. Basically, I think the other areas that are really important to a lot of people that have come out of the consultation is just straight out road safety. They are tired of having to deal with those bends. If you want to ride a bike into Waihi or from Waihi out to Athenry to the pools, you've got that nasty right angle bend that people don't like. And then just again, the width of the road, etc. It's a little more scary these days than ever. And I say that from a person that spent a lot of time on a bike, all right? I rode tens of thousands of miles a year on a bike. And a few years ago, I bought a bike purely to whip some weight off for a wedding. And I went off out on the road, and it was a bit scary. You know, I was a guy that was used to hooking in behind tankers and stock trucks and so on and going for it. I was on that road, and boy, those vehicles came through close. So it really has quite an effect potentially on that issue as well. So the connection is important between Waihi Beach, Athenry, and so on. Basically, the other area I think that we've got to consider, and this is something that Scott's working in this area the whole time and be mindful of, in a sense, for the Western Bay and for the Bay of Plenty. Western Bay, I've got to say. Waihi Beach could potentially become the off-road cycling area. There are plans of other things happening in the area, and so it adds to the whole flavour of what develops here. So to me, sir, the ability to at least proceed to see what we can get in the way of a resource consent so that we can actually make some firm plans, designs, and how much it's likely to cost and where we fund it from is just a logical step. Technically, it's largely funded, unless there are, I guess, other circumstances that is a lot more information required in some area. So to me, sir, I support it 100%. I believe the people of Waihi Beach in it's not unanimous, but almost unanimously support it. So I will vote for it, and am delighted that we're at this stage today. I just hope that we can get the consent lodged quickly, consent application lodged quickly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Salt. Right, put recommendations 1 to 6 there in front of you. All those in favour? Those against? I declare it carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll adjourn now for morning tea, and then we'll pick up with Coralie. And we dealt pretty extensively the other day with the operational report, and then we've got the Katikati wastewater, which we've also touched on in a couple of meetings and workshops up to date, but we'll close that out. So we'll resume at 11 o'clock. Rodney, there you go. You've got a quarter of an hour to go into where you work at your real job. report, pages 120 of your agenda. I'll get our interim General Manager Infrastructure Group, Peter, to introduce this. Now I've got his full title sitting in front of me on his card. Peter, I'll hand it over to you to highlight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So basically it's just an update on the risk matrix of a number of activities that are occurring within the infrastructure services group. Obviously the greens are good, and the oranges need a bit more attention. So just happy to take any questions that elected members may have.
As risky as it is, I'm willing to open the whole district up to you councillors if you've got any of issues to raise on any of these topics, and we'll try and deal with them that way. Councillor Wickers, you're going to kick off.
Yes, I will. Hey, just a couple of things on the fluoride update. Can you just clarify dates, as there seems to be confusion there? June 26, July 26.
Yep, so in terms of the fluoride project, we're expecting to start fluoridating June 2025 and July 2025. There was an extension from the Ministry of Health up to January 2026, but we're going to obviously meet that target.
So just noting that it says June 2026 in here. Yep. So just
Yep, that's an error in the report. Yep.
Cool. And then is there an update on a possible alternative supply?
I don't have an update, but I can follow that up.
That's you done. Councillor Joyce, I understand. Yep, Rodney.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Cool. That's right. I changed machines and changed locations, so I've all confused myself. Just wanted Rangiuru, there's a note in there that progress is being made and it's all green, but I think the last we heard was that they had sold their first block in there, but it was subject to title, and the title was due to come through sometime around now. I don't know if anyone on staff can give us an update or anything to do with the Rangiuru and the sale of lots there. I know Cedric was watching that quite closely before.
Yep. Through you, Mr. Chair. So Rangiuru, we're still progressing through the final stages in terms of our agreement for financial contributions, and that is due imminently. So once that has been signed off, then the title can issue, and that resource consent is then completed, and from our perspective. So
cool, thanks for that.
a wee bit of work still to be done, but we're getting very, very close.
Good news.
Deputy Mayor John.
Yep. Just had a question, a writing question. Says investigation, design and consenting of storm damage remedial works continues. Just wondering if we can be told where those sites are.
Yeah, we can do that. We can give you a list of sites and the status update for each site. Some are complete. Most of them are not complete. They're currently finalising the designs, waiting for consents. Fortunately, Waka Kotahi have confirmed that the additional subsidy that we received for those sites, which was 51% plus 30, they've decided to extend that to 30th of June 2026, which gives us an additional 12 months to get those sites completed at no financial disbenefit to council.
Does one of those sites include the site at about 300 Pongakawa Bush Road, where you've coned it off and restricted it, dare I say, the 4.5 metre wide road to about 1 lane?
I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head. I'm not managing those remediation projects myself personally.
Yeah, I can accept that, but I do understand there's been a lot of agitation from the people concerned about their road and what's going to happen. So I think it'd be good for them to know what council's plans are, as well as ourselves.
Generally, as a general rule of thumb, if a slip has impacted the carriageway, then we receive NZT funding. If it doesn't impact the carriageway, then we don't receive NZT funding. Therefore, it's probably not in the tranche of sites that we're working on at the moment. But I'll go back and speak to Sam, who's project managing those jobs, and ask her to confirm.
Well, perhaps I'll just add, it was pretty hard to hear on Saturday night where Councillor Ray and I were, but I got a pretty good ear bashing about how the roadway was being undermined. I mean, I took some photos yesterday and I wouldn't have called it undermined, but it's very, very close. Within half a metre of the tar seal is no longer there. So it is, and I imagine that's why it's coned off. So, yeah.
Thank you, John. Right. Councillor Murray Bench, I hope it's a question for one of our formidable group manager team up the front, or senior managers as well, or is this going to be a roading issue going back to roads?
On page 122, and it's relevant because the intersection upgrade, my phone keeps going, and I would like to know what the timeline is, subject to weather, and the impact it's having on those who want to subdivide in on the right as you go into Omokoroa. So the power being supplied when is that completed, and how can we actually push this faster? Because people are waiting to do development.
Yeah, I think their timeline has been outlined, but it'll certainly be available tonight at Omokoroa.
At the question now.
Yeah, I agree. We were told about July 26th, I understand. Callum, are you over the structure plan road for the industrial road at Omokoroa?
No, that would be Annalee.
Yeah, I think Annalee mentioned about July 2026. Yeah, she will be there tonight, so we can, but that she has the other two meetings.
It's one thing to have it tonight. Why isn't it available today? And for the people who are wanting action, Chris Watt is doing really well, but this overhead power supply, shifting that is scheduled for August. And will that help us to get our planning within that area on the right as we go into Omokoroa organised better? Does it help development? We've got people ready to go and we're holding it up because we can't move in faster than what these companies can do. So is the timetabling good?
I'm sorry, Councillor Murray Bench, we will just have to go back and get an update from Chris Watt if you wanted specifics around that, and Annalee. So they are not here. So unfortunately, as much as you have the brains trust at the front, we don't have all the information in front of us. So thank you.
Right, Chair.
What I can add, though, through you, Mr. Chair, is that our staff do negotiate very heavily with our network utility operators in terms of making sure and applying pressure for them to do what they need to do in order to be able to unlock development potential. So you can have every assurance that staff internally will be liaising and developing really strong relationships with whomever they need to, and to ensure that infrastructure is in place to enable development to proceed off the industrial spine road.
Councillor Granger.
Well, I just wanted to add to that conversation. As I drive past that construction site on a very regular basis, the big ducts for the power co to put their power through are being laid all the way from the corner up to, and should be just about past that industrial road now. So, I mean, our people are doing everything they possibly can to get that work done for power co to shove their cables through.
So I'm out there regularly too, and I'm aware of that. But we've got people pressuring us for more development that they want to get on with. And so it's coordinating it all is the great challenge that we face.
Thank you. Councillor Ray.
Thank you. I've got a question related relating to the Blue Haven under resource consents. Is there an opportunity within the working group that's being formed to, I guess, demand to have a minimum of 2 years baseline data to sort of gauge whether this is something that is viable in the area? Like, is there options to demand extra protections or proof that people won't drown, basically?
That's a biggie, yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Wairake South Blue Haven proposal will follow its own path through the fast track legislation, which means, and we are at this stage, what we are anticipating is that, or what has been signalled to us, is that the applicant is likely to have their application lodged with the panel late this year for hearing sometime, probably within the first 6 months of 2026. We would expect that the quality of their application addresses all of the concerns, most notably the stormwater hazard that exists with that land, and they will be required to demonstrate not only to the panel, but to council, that they, and to the Bay of Plenty Regional Council, that they have mitigated those risks and those environmental effects sufficiently enough to enable the panel to determine their application. So in that regard, it is as robust as a plan change or a resource consent process. The applicant is required to undertake significant modelling, not just for stormwater, but for providing solutions in terms of wastewater and transportation, not to mention the amenity that they're required to have within their own development. So I feel confident that that is exactly what they've told us they are working on presently, and there will come a time when council staff, our council, regional council, and likely Tauranga City Council staff too, will get to have a look at the application that they're submitting. We don't anticipate that will be for a number of months yet.
Councillor Daly.
Yeah, just on that same question, I see in the report it says key staff from Bay of Plenty Regional Council and Western Bay District Council are forming a working group to work with the developer and his team. That's intended to be a collaborative process rather than a combative process? Is that what?
So we never set out to have a combative process with our developers ever. The intention behind a working party is that it just simply makes sense, given that the subject land is in our district, but is very close to Papamoa. And equally, the Regional Council has significant concerns regarding stormwater management on that site. So we are intending and have conveyed to the applicant and his consultant team, as it exists at the moment, that we will work collaboratively. But ultimately, we are there to assess what's in the best interests of Western Bay District, similarly the Regional Council and Tauranga City Council, and apply the legislation that's in front of us when the matter is finally before the panel. So absolutely, we do not set out to be combative. I will suggest, though, that the stormwater management is probably and remains the biggest and most significant hurdle to be overcome, and that's a significant concern for the Regional Council.
Yeah, I understand. And is it reasonable to deduce after reading the Tatico report that maybe we're taking a different stance on applications like this as a result of the Tatico report, or is that incidental?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the Tatico report is looking substantively at our resource consenting process. So in terms of how we can have improvements around the way that we work on that. So when we look at this particular application, it's coming through the fast track process. So it is a slightly different consenting environment in terms of what we're working. So there is a high degree of consultation required through the fast track legislation at that early engagement phase before submissions are required from council. So it is fundamentally the same. Consultation pre-application is really important for us in terms of how we work with developers. It's just through a slightly different lens from the legislative framework that we're working under.
And would you say that if it's approved for a fast track, if it's approved under the Fast Track Approvals Act, that there's already been a reasonable consideration of the matters that councils are concerned about to actually get to that point, or does the serious work begin after that?
I think that there are a couple of lenses for this application. So while on the one hand, it's like a quasi resource consent application, there are strategic implications for us as a council, particularly in terms of reticulation for water and wastewater and where that is coming from. So there are some precursor discussions that are in the very preliminary phases about trunk infrastructure. And we have presented on this to council before, the fast track approvals process is designed to be faster than what you would expect of a traditional resource consent process or a large plan change. There are some concerns from council staff, and we have expressed this before, regarding the amount of time that all councils get to comment on the application and digest the application when it is lodged with the panel. And so with that in mind, it makes absolute sense to be working closely with the applicant developer in the infancy of this application, so that we are not surprised by what ultimately gets lodged with the EPA.
Can I ask my substantive question now? Sorry, it was a secondary. Okay, so we had a presentation from, a public forum, Rod Snow and John Fowler from Allport Road, and the photographs that they presented about the edge breaks in particular, I think, and I guess this is a question to Peter and Callum, so I should look at them maybe, but these are not new allegations, if you like, about edge breaks on our roading network. We've had other roads that have received constant service requests, like Waitau Road, and we had a delegation from Rocky Cutting Road a couple of years ago as well for exactly the same reason, a narrow road, a lot of traffic, trucks are forced off, vehicles are forced off the side of the road, and that contributes to the edge breaks, and because they're never addressed, then they just get worse and worse. And those photos we saw this morning, you could see some of those depressions on the side of the edge break were just getting deeper and deeper, and leading to like the cars rolling over if they get forced off the road, or even in the middle of the night, I guess, if you can't even see them. But so my question is there a mechanism to address the edge break situation in a bit more of a timely manner, or do we simply not have the budget, or is it other service requests? And I've had another person from another area say that he's put numerous service requests in on exactly the same issue, and they just never get responded to. The people of I don't know if it's true or not, but he claims the team has never got back to him on some of these requests. So just for some people, some members of the community, and we saw it this morning, we saw the number of people on that petition, that it is a concerning matter for people in our rural areas, and especially when all they see for their rates is a And all they want, all they come to expect in the end for paying their rates, which are quite big in some areas like this, is a nice, safe road.
So first of all, on Allport Road does need to be rehabbed. It's fairly high on our forward work programme. Probably currently on the programme it's to be done within 3 to 5 years. We can pull it forward and possibly look at doing in either 27 or 28. With respect to the edge break, we do repair edge break. Our focus is on pre-sale repairs for resale sites. So this year we have most of our pavement maintenance budget has been spent on pre-sale repairs for next year's resale sites. So you don't see the edge break repairs because they're covered by seal when we do the resale. We would like to do more edge break repairs. We would like to do more pavement maintenance in general, but we don't have the budget to do it. This year we've had enough budget to do the pre-sale repairs for our resale programme and not really much else. We have done a few pavement maintenance, significant pavement maintenance repairs on roads like Te Puke Highway and a few others, but we just don't have the money to do as much pavement maintenance as we would like to, and probably as the community expects us to.
So this might even come down to a bit more advocacy for some of that NZTA subsidy that we've missed out on through fixing potholes, and maybe this should be a consideration for them to think about the safety aspect of edge breaks as well as potholes.
So typically when we do a pavement rehab on a rural road, we also undertake seal widening, which goes some way to address the edge break issue, but there's a limit to the amount of rehab we can do. There's a limit now to the amount of seal widening we can do because we've got less low cost, low risk money from Waka Kotahi. So really, we just need to recognise that we're operating in a really constrained funding environment, and we're unable to do all the work that needs to be done.
Thanks, Grant. Right, councillors, I've got 5 names here on Rose's list, so we're working through. I'm conscious that we try and stick to the agenda. So start with Mayor James, and then we'll work through the list of councillors. I've got all your names as far as I know. James.
Thank you. I was just interested about the Mokoro Town Centre Jace development, and it says that resource consent, have resource consent but seeking a variation to the layout. Could you perhaps explain the nature of that variation? And, is it significant? And perhaps when the town centre development, if you know, will actually proceed?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the variation application is, generally speaking, is in regard to some of the roading network within the Jace Town Centre. There is further information requests that have been made by our team. So it's currently sitting in a space where we have got it on hold, waiting for the further information. So Section 92 hold. And when that information is received, it will come back off hold and it will continue processing. So we don't have any timeline around that because it's currently with the developer in terms of the additional information request.
Okay, appreciate that. Thanks for that answer.
Right, I'll start with the first 3 names. I've got Sol, Henry, Ray, and then we'll carry on. Alan? Yeah, I've got Joyce and Murray Ben.
Thank you, sir. Basically, mine's from page 125, and that's with resource consents of interest. And it's the Glen Isla Protection Society's resource consent hearing. I know there's been a lot of, been correspondence about the site for the hearing, where it will be held, etc. And now it has been sort of delayed and put out to August. Basically, there's quite a bit of interest in Waihi Beach about it. And last night, after the community board meeting, because it wasn't an agendaed item, but was brought up in public forum again, the community board loosely, informally discussed the situation and are, I believe, intending to write asking that the hearing site be placed either in Waihi Beach or perhaps at furthest would be Karikari. They feel that there is potentially, or a lot of local interest in this, and we believe there are a number of facilities that could hold this hearing in the area, including our new library, which would be open by then, and presumably maybe fitted out with whatever's needed. So I just thought I'd bring it up now. It's something that the community board they won't be able to, I don't think, have a meeting to formally push for this before the hearings happen, but they will be making contact, requesting that the people, that the hearing be held in a local facility for locals to at least attend and obviously submit, but also to see where it goes.
Do you want to comment any further on that, Alison?
Thank you. Just appreciate that there is a higher level of interest from that community, and we'll be looking closely at that location and timing.
Councillor Henry.
Got two things, and that's further to what was it about the couple, the two men who came in today talking about the road that began with all, and I couldn't get all put. Yeah. So I was concerned that and hearing what Callum's saying, that there's no money and not a lot of money and not a lot of wriggle room in the roading budget, but I was pretty astounded to actually see those photographs today that he showed us. That was pretty horrific. And to hear the conversation that was reportedly said by the people who are making that, the truck drivers, that they are actually paying for, in their resource consent, for some money to be going towards roading. So I would actually like to see if we can find out. I would be interested to see what is that actually happening and what proportion of their resource consent is going to the roading, and is it actually being gone into Callan's budget. So I actually like to see that. You can tell me now, but I'd like to actually see that on paper.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, what I can say now is that we agreed earlier on in the public forum to get back to the two submitters, Ron and John, and also that we would bring something back to the next committee meeting. So
thank you. I'm just saying that again. That wasn't my question. So mine is around the Te Puke wastewater treatment plant, and when we would be able to get an update on that. I believe that our STEAM leader, EJ's, I don't know whether he's back. Coralie, is he back?
Yeah, he's back today.
Okay. Yeah, well, he's probably very tired. But I'm wondering whether a lot of other stuff is already underway and pretty well ready to go. The earthworks, the blah blah blah. So and he had informed us that there was a change in the design consultant, and there's something to be finalised on that. Would we be getting that report soon or before the end of this training, is what I'm asking?
Yeah, so at the moment, we're just working through all the contract negotiations to be able to award the design build contract that we've been working on for quite a number of months now. The intent or the program that's the team are currently working towards is we at the 26th of June council meeting will be bringing a report to council to give an update of the project costs and the funding model that's driving, I guess, that project. And then following that, there is a requirement for us to do developer engagement on this project prior to awarding the contract. So we're planning for that developer engagement to happen first week of July. And then we will be bringing a report. We've got a tentative meeting date booked in for the 24th of July to bring a final report to council for contract award.
Right, thanks, councillors. I've got Ray, Joyce and Murray Bench. Hopefully that will wrap it up. Me and James did handle a lot of this in his recent meeting, so this is just a further update, and there's the further wrap-up meetings coming up. But anyway, Laura, Rodney, Margaret. Okay, with just the two ladies on my right. Oh, you weren't on the list. Oh, there we go. It's very short. Margaret, you can round it out.
Yes, I just want to make 2 points, sir. The first one is public forums, and we have asked for reports to come back to us, And it's one thing to be asking staff to, what are you going to do about the edge of the road? But it's a bigger issue than that. And when the report comes back, I would expect to see that whether or not we've got enough money in the budget on our roading to actually meet the needs of our wider rural community. And I think, sir, it's that's one of the great things about public forums. They come in, we can ask them questions, and then staff, you've got to give them the chance to actually report back to us. And so I look forward to that report. My other question, sir, is relating to the wastewater treatment for Te Puke. And it starts off with saying this project remains a concern and high risk. Could I, and we've changed the contractor, and are you still saying that it's high risk and you're concerned, or are we more confident about what we're doing?
I think we're definitely a lot more confident with what we're doing as we're progressing through the contract negotiations. We're addressing all the risks and issues that are coming up. So I don't think that statement is quite correct anymore.
The timeline?
So we're looking for contract award on the 24th of July, and from then we'll be able to start physical works essentially straight away.
Right, councillors, I need to move in a second of page 120 to 161 report. Councillor Murray Bench, Councillor Soul, I'll put that all in favour. Those against, carried. Do I not look left? I've got that right. Bias, yeah, okay. I'm a T, so I am biased to the right. Right, councillors, the final item is information for receipt of Katikati wastewater future directions. I've formally and public forum here. Murray, you going to move it?
It said there were 3 attachments of minutes. So there weren't.
Yeah, can I, sorry, I'll just talk to that. So we've just picked up directly before the meeting, there was an issue with the way the attachments have been pulled through into Stella. So as I understand it, they didn't pull through into the PDF version, but they pulled through into the HTML, but Rosa's just gone and uploaded them into Stella now. So apologies, because the purpose behind this report was to bring to council's attention of the minutes and discussions that have been held to date, but we've only just picked up that those never got pulled through.
Because we don't get to see any of the, I mean, that committee is locked out to the rest of us who aren't on it. So we're flying blind. I really wanted to read them and we haven't got them. So
It's in still.
We're in there now, I understand.
Can I just clarify? Are other elected members not able to view that folder?
So they've just been uploaded.
No. It's the
it's locked up to us, so we can't see anything.
An objective.
In Stella.
No, you should.
No,
Okay,
but Murray referring to that working committee, any minutes in that from that, so that's.
So we'll check that and we'll fix that if that's the case. Yeah. It shouldn't be locked off. That's not my understanding. Yeah.
Because I noted that it hadn't been uploaded, but I thought, no worries, they can just look in the actual folder, but if they can't, then that's unfortunate.
Yeah, so we'll look at that and fix that. Yeah.
Coralie, is there anything you want to just highlight on that or not? Or
No, I think the committee got a good presentation from Christina last week. She gave an update of where we're at and where we're going. The working group is working towards doing the options evaluation this Friday, and we have a backup date on the 30th of June if there's no resolution coming out of the 13th of June, and then we'll be bringing back a report to this council with the recommendations from that separate subgroup.
Councillor Murray Bench.
I asked the question of the submitter how the people of Matakana and Ringawai felt, and her reply was, well, that's up to them. But I note, sir, in recent that other councils are now saying you don't release to sea, it's got to be on land. And is that the approach that you're taking with the Katikati wastewater system? Because people don't want it to go out to the water.
Yeah, so the approach that we're taking is having a look at all the options, both land-based and ocean disposal. There's definitely no interest in discharge to the harbour, so the discharge we're looking at is beyond Matakana Island, and that And the way that that's been considered is considering basically 4 different cultural, environmental, communities, and energy and efficiency and sustainability. So all of those sorts of criteria are being considered as we're working through all of those options. There's no one preferred option at this stage.
Even though nationally it's becoming obvious that they don't want any sewage water to go into harbours or lakes.
So yes, we are not looking to discharge into the harbour because that is recognised as not being a good option.
I think you'd potentially bankrupt New Zealand, Councillor Murray Beans, if
Sorry?
you'd bankrupt New Zealand if you didn't discharge Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, Dunedin, New Plymouth, Invercargill, or Hastings, all those cities to the ocean. That's how New Zealand works.
Isn't it lovely that we're only dealing with Western Bay? Could I ask, Sir, on the libraries, educating customers regarding cashless at the end of the year? Is that going to be well received?
I think that's outside the scope of the Katikati wastewater future directions where we're at the moment. But Councillor Vickers, have you
That
got
was
one?
my second question, Sue.
What, going back to the operational risk report that we received? Yeah, we're page 162, but is this a big deal? Can you address?
Perhaps just quickly for some context, Councillor Murray Benj, I know I'm behind you, but yes, we are looking to progress our libraries to a cashless environment because there are risks attached with staff in our service centres handling large amounts of cash. So we are working through a process with New Zealand Post where those bills can be paid, for example, your rates can be paid via New Zealand Post rather than handling cash in our libraries.
Councillor Vickers.
Hey, just curious in regard, this says it's a PVC pipe. It's quite a durable material. So is the failure a failure of the material itself, or is it physical damage that's causing this?
It's failure of the material, and it's happening more at the joints than the actual pipe. But yeah, it's the material that's failing.
So it's a Z seal, a rubber seal, and it's the rubber that's failing?
I don't know the exact details of it, but I can find that out for you.
Just curious.
Councillor Henry, followed by Councillor
Presumably there'll be a collection fee on the rates being collected by another party.
Guys, challenge me.
And could you please put that in the report too?
I'm sure staff will look at it and try and resolve it, but yeah. Councillor Daly.
Coralie, at the Katikati Community Forum, I heard a story from a member of the public there that when the Katikati outfall pipe was installed, a fishing trawler supposedly dragged over the top of it out in the seaside and shortened it by a few hundred metres. Is there any truth to that story, or is it just an old wives' tale?
That's the first time I've heard that story. I can't tell you whether it's true or not. It's just the first time I've heard that.
Could be related to the fire when all the documents were lost in the fire here in council. Yeah.
Just back to the previous question about that Margaret asked about the harbour disposal. There's no objection to the seaward side of where it's currently outputting. There's no objection to that ongoing, is there?
That's in one of the options that we're evaluating. Yeah.
But it's not had there's been no flags raised about that particular aspect of it, or
probably the best answer is just let that committee get on and do what they're doing. They're working really well and they're working within that budget. It's there, so let's let them deal with all those issues. It's been handled really well by that professional team. That's my answer to it. But I know, do you have anything to add, Coralie? I know the mayor's shaking his head. He's agreeing.
That's exactly my point. I think trying to preempt what the decision, what the committee may decide now is unwise.
Exactly. It's in the right hands. It's been handled really well. So
But it's worth noting, sir, that when we originally did this proposal, it was angry and people didn't want it. And so I was interested, had they changed their minds? And I'd be very surprised if they have.
Well, I think their presentation last week showed us how professionally that's been handled, and every T has been crossed and every I is dotted. So that's a very good outcome. Right, councillors, for the first time ever, must be Peter's influence. I'm finally going to end ahead of time. Well done, Peter. You're two, Mr. Ellis and Mr. Crow, left me hanging out to dry with their agendas. So, Peter, kudos to you. Do you want to close out? Any final words? Your first meeting as interim group manager.
The only thing I'd say is that, some decisions today with the precious reserve toilet and also the crossing in Athenry, it's a challenge always to try and meet the needs of the wider community, but also taking on board the individual needs of some people within our community. That's always been a challenge, and I think you've dealt with that very well today and getting that over the line as well. So it helps give us clarity and direction, and things will settle down in the future. I have no doubt about that.
Okay. With that, I declare the meeting closed at 11:48-ish AM. Thank you.